I found out my husband and my sister were stealing my inheritance on the same day I buried my mother, and they thought grief had made me too weak to notice. I am telling this in my own voice because for years my family spoke over me, decided for me, and rewrote my life as if I were just a quiet background character in their story. I wasn't always strong. I was the youngest daughter, the agreeable one, the woman who kept the peace at family dinners and swallowed sharp words to avoid conflict. My mother used to say I had her heart but not her hardness, and I believed that was a flaw until the day she died and everything she protected was ripped open. My mother's house was still full of flowers when my sister Laura showed up with her arms wrapped around my husband, Daniel. They looked like a united front, dressed in black, whispering together as if they were the only two people truly affected by the loss. I noticed the way Daniel avoided my eyes, the way Laura spoke for him, explaining logistics I hadn't asked about. Grief has a way of sharpening certain instincts while dulling others, and something in my chest tightened every time they exchanged a glance. My mother left everything to me. Not because she loved Laura less, but because Laura had already taken so much. Loans that were never repaid, favors disguised as emergencies, opportunities quietly handed to her while I worked 2 jobs and raised our daughter mostly alone. My mother used to say, "One of you takes, the other gives. I need to make it right before I go." I didn't know she meant it literally. The will was clear. The house. The savings. The land my grandfather bought when he came to this country with nothing but his name. All of it was meant to give me and my daughter stability, something no one could take away again. Or so I thought. 3 days after the funeral, Daniel told me we needed to talk finances. His voice had that calm tone he used when he thought he was being reasonable and I was being emotional. He said the house was too big, that maintaining it would drain us, that selling quickly was the smart move. Laura happened to be sitting at the kitchen table, nodding along, already pulling up listings on her phone. I realized then that this conversation had happened before I ever entered the room. That night, while Daniel slept, I opened his laptop. I didn't feel proud of it, but I felt desperate. I found emails between him and Laura, weeks old, discussing how to transfer ownership, how to pressure me gently, how grief would make me pliable. They talked about me the way people talk about weather, as if I were a condition to work around, not a person who could fight back. What hurt most wasn't the money. It was the betrayal layered so neatly, so confidently, by the 2 people who were supposed to protect me. My sister, who knew every insecurity I had. My husband, who knew exactly how tired I was, how deeply I trusted him to carry weight when I couldn't. I didn't confront them right away. Instead, I listened. I watched. I learned how long this had been happening. Laura had convinced Daniel that the inheritance was unfair, that I didn't need it as much as they did, that he deserved compensation for standing by me through my mother's illness. He let himself believe that my loyalty was something he could cash in. When I finally spoke, it wasn't with tears. It was with documents. A lawyer my mother had quietly introduced me to months earlier. Clauses in the will they hadn't bothered to read carefully. Protections designed specifically to keep family from tearing itself apart, or at least from stealing successfully. The look on Daniel's face when he realized he had miscalculated still lives in my memory. Not anger, not sorrow, but fear. The kind that comes when someone understands they are no longer in control. Laura tried to cry, tried to remind me of childhood, of shared bedrooms and secrets, but betrayal changes the language of love. Her words landed flat, empty. I asked Daniel to leave that night. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I simply told him that a man who could plan against his wife while she buried her mother was not a man I would grow old with. He took a suitcase and his excuses and walked out of the house my mother built for me. Some people think justice looks like revenge. For me, it looked like silence. Like changing the locks. Like planting new flowers in the garden and letting my daughter choose their colors. Like learning that strength doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it arrives quietly, after everything else has been stripped away. Laura doesn't call anymore. Daniel sends emails he never quite apologizes in, always circling the idea that things could have been different if I had been more understanding. I don't respond. I finally understand what my mother was trying to give me wasn't just property, but proof that I deserved to be chosen, even by myself. If you're listening to this and you've ever been told you were too soft to protect what's yours, too emotional to see the truth, I want you to know this isn't where the story ends. For me, it was the beginning of a life no one else could negotiate behind my back. And if you stay with me, there are more truths like this waiting to be told.